is Lauren Hollis for NOI Education Services, and I am coming to you with video number 3 from our new RTO Standards Series, and we are talking all about training. So specifically, already we covered 1.1 in some detail. If you want to, you can check back with those videos. They will be somewhere here. I'm not quite sure where. And today we are going to be talking about standard 1.2. Now, this is all about the new draft standards, not anticipating a lot of changes here. But before we get into it, guys, please like and subscribe. If you are watching these videos, if you have watching these videos and you haven't subscribed yet, why? Why are you doing that? Do me a favor, push the like button, push the subscribe button. It really does help us keep all of this content coming out to you. So today we're going to be talking about 1.2, and really, while this is in relationship to training, what it is more effectively about is industry engagement. So it was the old standard 1.5, 1.6 under the current RTO standards. Under the new RTO standards, or at least the proposed ones, it's coming out as standard 1.2, which basically says the RTO engages effectively with industry, employer, and community representatives to ensure learners attain relevant skills and knowledge. The RTO demonstrates how it identifies relevant industry, employer, or community representatives, seeks meaningful advice and feedback from those representatives, uses the advice and feedbacks to inform changes to training and assessment strategies and practices, and that training reflects current industry practice. So there's quite a lot in there. But again, this is all focused in and around training. So not only are we looking at obviously engaging with industry to make sure that we provide assessments that are relevant, but we are also looking at them from the perspective of making sure that our training is relevant as well. So some of the things that we might look at engaging on training is it may be having an industry body to review our training materials. It might be getting some input from them in relationship to appropriate methods of assessment for particular skills or knowledge, okay? It might be for duration. Quite often duration comes into it as to whether or not, the duration is appropriate for the depth, breadth of the skills and knowledge, things like that. And what we really want to make sure it is not just that industry is, I guess, kind of ticking and flicking and going, yeah, okay, I've read the training and assessment strategy and it's suitable. But what we're more looking for is that there is some advice or feedback provided through that process, and that feedback and advice is actioned, okay? So examples of how this might look that I've seen happen in the industry across different providers is it might be that you get feedback from learners and from existing workers as to the types of tools that you're using and whether or not those tools are relevant and current, or if there's a new tool. So we recently ran a professional development day for an RTO. We did the vet industry engagement in the morning, and then in the afternoon they had industry representatives coming out. This was specific to engineering and to welding in particular. And they came and basically demonstrated what some of the latest techniques, what some of the latest machines were, how those were operating, what was the benefits of the new machines, how that technology was changing. So that is then fed back into the types of projects that the RTO is using this year, the equipment that they're using, some equipment that might be getting scaled out, others that they might be focusing on with a little bit more detail, things like that. So that would be an example of how it kind of goes through that process of like, we've gone out, we've identified industry representatives, we have brought them in to deliver training to our trainers, and then the trainers can then teach the learners and pass that information on as to what is the most current practices, what are the most current tools and equipment, things like that. Okay. Another good example of this from the HLT CHC space is we were delivering some training to our First Nations learners on, I guess, culturally sensitive topics. And so this particular RTO went out, they've established a First Nations working group for that particular learner cohort, and they provided feedback on appropriate methods related to like healthcare practices and how to talk about cultural practices and things like that. So that entire process was effectively led very much by industry. And, you know, all of the sessions were recorded. AI was used to pull out the key points of those sessions, to pull out key themes, things like that. You know, the RTO worked with the industry body to actually review the cultural suitability of all the tools before they get deployed. So there's a whole bunch of ways in which, you know, that particular RTO was engaging with industry to ensure not only that training was relevant to the cohort and that it was relevant to the industry, but also that it was like it was culturally safe for their learners. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that when it comes to that learner wellbeing section that we've kind of just briefly touched on, and that we will go into more detail as we go through this series. So that's just a couple of different ways that you may go about dealing with it. Obviously, I think that the key part of this is always, and this was always something with the trainer competencies as well, is that when we say that it reflects current industry practice, okay, that we've got a methodology for going, yeah, not only are we taking information in, but we're using that information to affect our practice moving forward. And this is very much how we approach trainer competency and currency. We approach it in the same manner to ensure that while we have information coming in, while we are taking feedback in from industry, we are also then utilizing that information and passing it on. And that's what's actually having an impact on our practice. So if you've got within, for example, your TAS, or you might have an industry engagement register, and you have like feedback that you've undertaken and feedback that you've received in, it would be really good to have a column of like changes that then were impacted based on that. So it might be that you updated the duration of a unit of competency. It may be that you updated an assessment methodology. It may be that you included some new information. So you updated your training materials to include some more information. A good example was we've been developing some horticulture materials lately. We got feedback from the trainer, we got feedback from the workplace, and they were like, look, you've included these plants here. However, it's not relevant to the area that we're training in because they're training out like in the Pilbara kind of area. They were like, these sorts of plants, these plants are far more relevant if you could incorporate, you know, update the assessment to make sure, update the training materials to make sure that these plants are incorporated, that these disease methodologies are incorporated, things like that. That's, you know, that was how, that was the way that the feedback was then actioned. So not only did we take that on board, but there were changes, there were tangible changes that were made to the training and assessment based on that feedback that we received. And that's what regulators are going to want to see. They're going to want to see, one, you actually went out and engaged, but that based on that, you then made updates. We're working with another provider that works kind of in the rail industry. They've run their first course. They've then basically reorganized the entire program based on feedback from the learners, feedback from the employer. They've changed the order of units. They've changed the clustering of units based on that feedback. So again, they've not only identified who the appropriate stakeholders are in the process and taken and gone out and gotten the feedback, but then there have been actioned changes to how the training and assessment is structured. Sometimes that's big, sometimes that is like a whole restructuring of course. Other times it's little. The more times you go out and do that feedback, the more you're refining your course and the less, you know, the scope of the changes is going to kind of become smaller and smaller. So, you know, when we're working with RTOs that have been delivering the same units of competency, the same skill sets and things like that, for maybe 10 years, yes, they've taken it through different iterations. They have a very, very strong idea of like what works for their particular cohort. And again, at the end of the day, guys, a lot of that is going to come through in the fact that you've got good completion rates and that you've got good evidence of competency. That's kind of the end goal of all of this. But making sure that, as I said, it's not just taking on feedback, but how did that feedback then impact how your course was delivered, right? So how did it impact what the trainer did? How did it impact what the learner did? How did it impact your learning, your training materials? How did it impact your assessment? these are the sorts of things that you want to be articulating either through your training and assessment strategy, or you can do it through like an industry engagement register. Really, like 6 to 1, half dozen the other, completely up to you, but you want to have a mechanism to do that. I know that you can do that like with some of the student management systems as well. You've got capabilities to do that too. Anything that you can do to make that as easy as possible. Obviously, that's what we're going to be looking for. But as I said, the key is to actually be showing that you've made changes to your training and assessment strategies based on the advice and the feedback that you've received. Okay, guys, I hope that you've enjoyed that. That basically covers, like that legitimately covers just standards 1.1 and 1.2. We've done 3 videos. I'm sorry, you guys know that I like to keep talking. We are going to be then going on next to obviously assessment. It hasn't disappeared from the standards. As I said, training is a new focus. Learner wellbeing and support is a new service, which is fantastic. But at the end of the day, guys, it's about assessment. It's about competency. And so we are going to be going into that in our next video. Guys, if you disagree with me, by all means, feel free to do so respectfully. Otherwise, like, subscribe, do all those good things. Keep this free PD coming out to you. If you are undertaking this as PD, by all means, reach out to us. Like, comment, subscribe, do things like that below. Send those screenshots through to us. Otherwise, we can send you out some assessments to undertake to show that you've undertaken that PD. We're more than happy to send you out a little PD certificate to thank you for your time in watching it, but also to evidence how you're trying to grow as a practitioner or an RTO. Otherwise, if you guys haven't developed your new standards of policies and procedures for the 2025 standards, and why would you? Because it's a terrible process. Only weird people like me like doing these sorts of things. Then by all means, reach out to us. You can contact me, lauren@anawire.org, or you can reach out to the lovely Laura at anawire.org, and we would be happy to talk to you about our policies and procedure sets. They are designed, we have covered them for CRICOS, we have got a set for domestic, we have got a set for funding. We can basically contextualize the set like we do with all of our assessments. We can contextualize the needs of you and your RTO. So make sure that you reach out to us and ask us about that so that you can avoid the hours and hours of updating policies and procedures. In addition to the policies and procedure set that we are providing to RTOs this year, we also have that coming along with a whole training support system that's going to sit in the background of that, which is the more videos to actually explain how these policies work, how they link into the standards, and how they're relevant to different roles within your RTO, be that trainers, admin, management, things like that. Hope you guys found this helpful. Otherwise, you wasted your time. No, I'm kidding. Thank you very much, guys. My name is Lauren Hollows for NOI Education Services. Have a great day.